Welcome to our preview of Lexus Melbourne Cup Day. After a fabulous Derby day, we look towards the biggest race, the 2 mile feature on the racing calendar here in Australia. David Gately, a bit misleading behind us because the beautiful sunshine and warm weather that we have at the moment, we will not have come Lexus Melbourne Cup Day. Does that throw a spanner in the works for you?
Oh no, I think we know what we're dealing with. You know, I think there's 75,000 different bureaus that want to tell you it's going to rain. So let's assume we're looking for those horses that can handle slow to heavy ground.
I guess soft or heavy is the question that will be answered come race morning, what we're working with and whether we get rain during the day, which is very important to figure out as we get into the program. The big one, race 7, the Lexus Melbourne Cup, lots of prize money up for grabs, 2 mile. And we've got such a vast, broad field from all over the world coming, as we usually do.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, some of the locals have great hopes, especially that Caulfield Cup winner in Half Yours. What a race it sets up to be.
No, you're spot on. It's Australia's greatest race, has been for over 100 years, and I don't think that'll ever change. And this year's a terrific rendition because you've got a couple of those internationals that are world class. El Riffer's obviously at the top of that, but the horse you referenced, Half Yours, he's the one on the up. I remember targeting him as possibly or potentially the best wet tracker in Australia a few months ago, and here he is in a Melbourne Cup as favourite, Lexus Melbourne Cup as favourite, and he will handle the ground, whereas some of his key rivals are more of a query.
So he's a justified favourite in your eyes?
Look, I think he deserves to be favourite. You know, he's still got to run the 3200. No one's overly concerned about it, but it's just a question that's unanswered at the minute.
And for pedigree buffs out there, he's by St Jean. He's sized by Teofilo, who's side 3 Melbourne Cup winners, which is a great pointer for those who like the breeding or want to get more interested in delving into it. Other chances, dangers around Half Yours?
Yeah, well, I was looking at this race from away out as we do, and I thought it might be an internationals year, and then along comes Buckaroo off a dynamite run in the Cox Plate. Went back and looked at his run in the Lexus Melbourne Cup last year, and he was probably the best run in the race, in my very humble. He drew barrier 5,000. They went back to last and tried to make an 800-metre run on an inside bias track. I thought he went enormous. Okay, a bit of a different prep. I know he'll handle the ground, and I don't have concerns about him at the trip. His class will take him a long way. He's my top pick. Scared stiff of Presage Nocturnal, who was excellent in the Caulfield Cup back in trip. Gap between runs, now steps up in trip, gets a wet track. Half Yours is the other must include. And certainly Valiant King down the bottom, another terrific run in the Caulfield Cup. He's a different horse since the blinkers went on. So there's 4. But it doesn't end there, as we know.
Gee, so you jumped off Half Yours and you put Buckaroo on top.
Yeah, look, I was pretty keen Half Yours into the Caulfield Cup. And look, he's a key winning hope. But you can only have one on top, and that's Buckaroo. But look, it'd be un-Australian not to take a trifecta and first 4, so I'll definitely be doing that.
Absolutely, and on Buckaroo, you mentioned a lot of once-a-year punters look to that Cox Plate form reference, which you're doing. Now, speaking of exotic bets, first 4s, trifectas, quinellas, etc., who are you adding in that perhaps are at longer odds?
Yeah, I've given you those 4. I like Meydan getting to a big track, Flemington. I am a little concerned about the wet with he and Further, the Northern Hemisphere 3-year-old who was terrific winning 2 starts ago. So those 6 will definitely go in, maybe even River of Stars, and play some exotics there, a few roving banker trifectas and first 4s and then a box trifecta. Have a bit of fun with it, and that's what it's all about.
I have to ask you about one more. He's been here. In fact, both of the stablemates at the time have been here. Vauban and Absurd.
Look, I think Vauban and I are going to see other people now. You know, I'm going to work around him, but if he wins, I'll probably lose. And same story, Absurd, as he gets, you know, into the twilight of what's been a great career.
It's going to be a fabulous race, and it's one of those races that it's hard to turn anybody off anything, but I'm with you. The pointy end of the market looks to have this race sorted out, a bit unlike last year, Gator. Have you got anything else on Lexus Melbourne Cup Day that can steer the punters into?
Yeah, look, race 9, number 15, a horse called Surf and Bird. Couldn't have won any better at Caulfield. Sat wide all the way, bolted in, ran sensational time. And the wet track holds no fears for this horse. So on a typically challenging Melbourne Cup Day card, I made Surf and Bird the best race 9.
I think the best way to go is to follow all social media and follow all the media outlets to see what the weather does, how the track plays, and all expert analysis, especially from this man, David Gately. Wishing you best of luck for the 2025 Lexus Melbourne Cup.
Same to you, mate, and punters.